That was a thing that happened at cons. Let me tell you about it. Hello, my demons and desserts, and welcome back to my channel. I'm your sweet and seductive succubus host, Blondie Sunday, and I'm here to dish on nerd culture, history, and other strange stories that appeared on the internet over time. This time, our focus is yaoi paddles. Ah, yaoi paddles. If you attended cons in the early 2000s, you have definitely seen these wooden oar-shaped objects with the word yaoi painted or carved on them. Either they were being sold at vendor booths, handmade ones in the hands of cosplayers, and the occasional few hanging around Artist Alley to subtly hint at what you might find in their booths. But before we go in too deep about the history of the yaoi paddle and the effect it had on the con scene, let's start with what a yaoi paddle is exactly and where the idea originated. So as I informed you earlier, a yaoi paddle is a wooden paddle, though sometimes it reminded me more of an oar in shape, similar to the idea of a Greek fraternity or sorority's paddles at colleges. Instead of having the Greek letters on it, however, it had the word yaoi on it. At least typically. When it grew in popularity, there were other variances, but we'll get into that later. Now, the term yaoi is still very much used in the anime community. It refers to pairings with two male characters in an often steamy relationship. Not always, but often you needed to be 18 plus to purchase these genre of manga. The very first yaoi paddle was a gift given to the purveyor of said illicit comics called Hendane. The owner of Hendane liked the gift so much that they got permission from the gift giver to create and sell them as a product. Needless to say, they caught on fast. Yaoi paddles were soon everywhere. In fan art, in cosplay skits, carried around the con floor as a prop for cosplays, you couldn't turn around without getting smacked in the rear by one. And no, that's not hyperbole. Now, if you're into certain aspects of kink communities, you're well aware of the main purpose of a paddle being to spank. And while the yaoi paddle was intended to be a gag gift only for display purposes or funny pictures, certain individuals took the prop a little too literally. As the prop grew in popularity, so did stories of individuals getting drive-by smacked with a paddle. Websites like LiveJournal, Tumblr, Cosplay.com, they all had horror stories of the yaoi paddle and the individuals who claimed to have been hit by them. Of course, take this with a grain of salt. I'm sure not all the stories are 100% factual, but with so many stories, there has to be some granules of truth in them. There is even a tale of someone's back being broken by a particularly excited individual with one of these whack-a-weeb sticks by having their pelvis shattered and confining them to a wheelchair indefinitely. But I cannot find a shred of truth to this rumor in the news media or anything a bit more concrete than Tumblr blogs. YouTuber Redbard created a video as well having asked Hendane if the account was true. However, I managed to find a tweet from Otacon's official Twitter which states, "So, official Otacon account here. The story is entirely fabricated. It's not true. It's a fake. There was never a hospitalization injury due to a yaoi paddle or assault charges. Please don't spread unfounded rumors like this." In a reply to said tweet, Hedane also stated they would clear up any misinformation on their own Twitter thread, which I'll post here for you if you want to pause and read. Redbard also posted a tweet stating that their source was under the impression the story was true, and they'll be updating and revising their video to clear this up. I'll post that video in the description down below. But it goes to show you the old saying still rings true. Don't believe everything you hear and only half the things you read. I find the Otacon tweet proof enough the story was a con horror story that was spun out of control because something like this simply has no reason to be swept under the rug for a con's reputation. And with how large Otacon is, even in 2007, I highly doubt there wouldn't be any police reports, news stories, or if this wounded paddle victim ended up in a wheelchair, would they be able to remain completely anonymous for over 10 years on the prying internet with not a soul confirming they existed somehow? I've seen what people do to hunt down the truth on the web, and damn internet, you scary. But on to the final act of this dreaded play, the banning of the paddle. As I said earlier, there had to have been some real accounts of being assaulted by people with these paddles during conventions, as eventually cons decided for the safety and peace of mind of the attendees, yaoi paddles were to be struck down by the banhammer, and could no longer be carried around by anyone on the floor. I'm unsure if this also pertains to cosplay skits or anything that can be monitored by a staff member, like the games, or where it is merely a prop and not a dangerous booty beater, like a panel as a visual aid. But for the most part, they are no longer allowed to be carried, bought, or sold at conventions, at least to my knowledge. Obviously, researching every single con rules would be out of my scope right now, but I have yet to see a booth at the cons I have visited selling the actual paddles anymore. There are, however, still remnants of the past on Etsy and other artist web stores where people who remember the early 2000s con scene have replicated the product in a much smaller, much safer scale for keyrings, jewelry, pins, stickers, and sometimes even apparel. It's a way to remember the darker times of conventions before the chaos started to get reined in. Thank you, my little succubites, for joining me in this jaunt down memory lane. It was quite the wonderful trip. Please let me know what you think down in the comments, or if you have any ideas on things you want to talk about, or if you simply want to leave a like or share on this video, that's appreciated too. If you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, here are my socials. Until we meet again, ciao!